You check your bank account. The number is close to zero. Your chest tightens, and your mind narrows onto one question: how to survive until the next paycheck. 40,000 years ago, a person sitting by a different fire faced the exact same zero. No stored food. No shelter guaranteed past tonight. No inheritance, no bank, no safety net of any kind. And yet inside that same tribe, some people ended up with more meat, more allies, more security, and more influence than everyone else around them. Not because they found something, because of what they did with nothing. So what separated the ancient person who stayed at zero from the one who quietly became the wealthiest person in the group? Was it strength? Was it luck in the hunt? Or was there a specific psychological strategy, one your brain may still be running right now without you noticing? Here is the uncomfortable part. The blueprint for building wealth from nothing is not modern at all. It is at least 100,000 years old, and most people today have completely forgotten how to use it. Start with skill, because ancient wealth was never about what you were given. It was about what you were willing to wait for. In studies of the Ache people of Paraguay, anthropologists Kim Hill and Hillard Kaplan found that male hunting skill does not peak until roughly age 35, sometimes even later. Think about that. 2 full decades of learning, failing, and going home some nights with nothing at all, before a hunter reaches his most productive years. This means the most resourced men in these societies were not the ones who grabbed the fastest short-term win. They were the ones who tolerated 20 years of looking poor by comparison while they built a skill nobody could take from them. Kaplan called this embodied capital, wealth stored inside a body and a brain instead of a storehouse. Cannot be stolen. Cannot be lost in a bad season. It compounds every single year you keep investing in it. Here is where it gets stranger, because skill alone was never enough. In 1993, anthropologist Kristen Hawkes published research on food sharing among hunter-gatherers and found something that looked, on the surface, completely irrational. Successful hunters gave away enormous amounts of meat, often the majority of what they caught, to people outside their own immediate family. Hawkes argued this was not generosity for its own sake. It was insurance. A hunter who shared widely today built a network of people who would share with him the day his own hunt failed. In a world with zero stored savings, the ancient version of a retirement account was not a pile of dried meat. It was a wide web of people who owed you something, and who you owed in return. Wealth was never really the meat. It was the relationships the meat created. Here is the part nobody talks about. This entire idea is buried inside a single word most people use every day without ever questioning it. The word wealth did not originally mean money at all. It comes from the Old English word weal, meaning well-being, welfare, the state of a whole and thriving community. The word wealthy, in its original form, meant something closer to well, as in health and stability, not rich, as in coins in a box. Somewhere in the last few centuries, the word got hijacked, narrowed down from an entire community's well-being into a single number sitting in one person's private account. Your ancestors would not have understood modern wealth at all. To them, a person surrounded by starving allies while sitting on a personal hoard was not wealthy. He was one bad night away from being alone, and alone in the ancient world usually meant dead. This created a strange social rule that anthropologist Christopher Boehm documented extensively in his 1999 research on hunter-gatherer bands. He called it reverse dominance hierarchy. In most primate groups, the strongest individual dominates and hoards resources. But in human hunter-gatherer bands, the group actively punished hoarding and showing off. Boasting hunters were mocked, sometimes brutally, specifically to prevent them from becoming too powerful or too selfish with what they had. This means your ancestors built an entire social immune system against exactly the behavior modern culture now celebrates: flaunting resources, broadcasting status, hoarding for yourself first. In the environment your brain evolved in, that behavior got you isolated. Quiet generosity, by contrast, got you protected. There is one more layer, and it explains why some people became influential leaders from absolutely nothing. In 2015, anthropologist Joseph Henrich, then at the University of British Columbia, published research on what he called prestige bias transmission. Unlike dominance, which is based on fear, prestige is based on voluntary respect. Henrich's research showed that humans instinctively watch and copy the most skilled people around them, and those skilled people gain influence not by demanding it, but simply by being useful enough that others want to learn from them. This means ancient wealth from zero followed a repeatable pattern. Invest years in a skill nobody else has mastered. Use that skill to give generously before you need anything back. Let other people's admiration and debt to you accumulate quietly, without ever demanding status directly. Your ancestors who understood this instinctively became the wealthiest people in a room that had no money in it at all. Follow-up research by biologist Michael Gervin and Hillard Kaplan in 2007, looking at hunter-gatherer productivity across the lifespan, found the same pattern repeating across multiple unrelated societies. Peak resource production and peak social standing consistently arrived decades after people started their skill investment, not months. The people who tried to look wealthy immediately in every society studied ended up with the least security by the time they were old. Here is the modern mirror. You have probably measured your own progress by how much money sits in an account today, this week, this month. But that number was never the ancient definition of wealth, and your brain, the one built over hundreds of thousands of years inside those hunter-gatherer bands, was never designed to build lasting security in weeks. It was designed to build it across decades of skill, patience, and quiet generosity that compounds through other people, not through your own personal pile. This is why the fastest path out of zero rarely feels fast. It looks like the opposite of what modern culture tells you wealth should look like. It looks like investing in a skill while looking poor by comparison. It looks like sharing resources before you feel like you have enough to share. It looks like building trust with people slowly enough that they would notice if you disappeared. None of that shows up in a bank balance today. All of it is exactly how every human before you who escaped zero actually did it. So consider your own zero differently. Not as proof you are behind some imaginary modern timeline that says you should already have more by now. Consider it as the same starting point every human who ever built lasting security from nothing has stood at, a starting point that was never meant to be solved in a month, because the wealth on the other side of it was never really about the money. It was about the web of people, skill, and trust you spend years quietly weaving around yourself, the same way every ancestor who made it out of zero once did, long before anyone had a word for rich at all. You check your bank account again. The number has not changed yet, but somewhere inside you, an older program just woke up, the one your ancestors used to build something out of nothing, long before anyone thought wealth was a number instead of a web.